Castlevania was a game I loved and hated playing when I was a middle schooler. I remember seeing it for the first time when my buddy Jay would take me on his moped to his friend's house. Jay's friend had a Nintendo Entertainment System and Castlevania. I watched him play and I was blown away by the 8-bit graphics and its dark gothic setting, which I'm a big fan of since I loved vampire movies from the 80s. Movies such as The Monster Squad, Fright Night, and The Lost Boys.
My own brother, a vampire. You wait till Mom finds out, buddy.
Were a few of those films that I enjoyed watching. Did I get to play it that day? Well, unfortunately, no. It would be a couple months later that my sister, Irma, brought me with her to home sit with her. I wasn't expecting to see any gaming systems there, but I was at least hoping they had cable so I could watch Tales from the Dark Side. And MTV when they used to play music videos. When we arrived, I was pleasantly surprised to see a NES with 4 games. Among those games were Super Mario / Duck Hunt, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!, and Castlevania. The system belonged to 3 Filipina girls who had a small but impressive collection of games. Putting the cartridge of Castlevania in the NES and picking up the controller was so exciting to me because I couldn't wait to play it. I loved our hero, Simon Belmont, who was given a whip like Indiana Jones, and it grew with the 2 power-ups to make it longer because Simon likes to. The first boss fight with the bat when I was a kid was actually pretty pathetic. I have to admit, the first time I got to fight with it, I ended up losing. I wouldn't be until I played it a second time that I remember getting the axe and using it against the bat that helped me win the battle, and getting this puzzling red ball. I've always wondered what the little red balls were all about when you beat the boss. Oh, okay, that makes sense. The horror themes were fantastic, such as the giant bat, giant Medusa head, the 2 mummies, Frankenstein with Igor, Death, aka the Grim Reaper, and Count Dracula. The other favorite of mine was the music of Castlevania. Tracks such as Vampire Killer from Sato Terashima were so good to listen to. Walking on the Edge track had an ominous feel, like you weren't going to make it out of this level. My most dreaded track to hear was Nothing to Lose, your final fight with Dracula. I heard this track a lot during my gameplay when I was an adult. Then my smile turned upside down when I was introduced to a small Medusa heads, the knockback that sent you to fall to your death, and the little hunchback dudes that would jump on you. Back then, this game was brutally hard for me, and yet I kept pushing on to see how far I would go, and was able to get to the Grim Reaper and get my butt handed to me. That's when I stopped playing that game and never gave it a second thought. It wouldn't be until the summer or fall of 2019 when I went to a game convention that I picked up Castlevania, which was the 5-screw variant, which is a little sought after. I remember the fond memories of this game, but I must have forgotten the misery of never having beaten this game before. I played it a few times, of course, when I brought it home, but I wasn't serious about completing it. After that, I was done playing the game, I put it in its case, and it sat on my shelf until I had the urge to finally see if I could defeat Death and Dracula. June 10, 2024. This was the day I was going to beat Castlevania. I'm no longer that kid, and now I should be able to figure out the patterns of the levels and bosses to get through this game. Therefore, here's the thing. I was able to figure out how to avoid most of the enemies, even those annoying Medusa heads to Death's level. Holy water is going to make my fight against Death easier for me, like it did with Frankenstein and Igor. I remember the path towards death was these knights and of course the Medusa heads in order to kill you off so you don't make it to death. Well, after several attempts at playing, I finally made it to death with the holy water. Can I beat him this time since I come prepared? Unlike last time when I used a cross boomerang. Okay, let's spam him with holy water. Holy smokes! I finally spanked him.
You're next, mister! You understand me?
Yes, sir.
Sultan!
Get off me!
Stop it!
Behaviors will not be tolerated!
Now I can make it to Dracula without dying. One of the toughest places to cross was this level. With the giant bats on the bridge, they consistently knocked me off to my death. I know getting the stopwatch was pointless since I can only use it once with the hearts I've collected. Moving past the giant bats on the bridge is something I was finally able to do, but I heard the clock tower was a tough stage. One of the things I had to do was avoid getting into a fight with the eagles carrying the hunchbacks. Avoid the bones being tossed at me by the skeletons. Start memorizing where the other sub-weapons are so you don't grab the wrong one by mistake. If you can get the stopwatch, which sometimes the enemies might drop, it will make this clock tower easier to navigate through. Here I am thinking, wow, I've never made it this far before. I feel like I have a chance at beating Dracula. I'm almost there. After passing the clock tower, I'm greeted by that music track called Nothing to Lose. One of the things I'm so grateful to the developers for doing is giving you infinite continues and not making me go back to the Bat Bridge or worse, Death's level. You are at Dracula's Keep. I started collecting hearts for my holy water use against Dracula's second form, the Cookie Monster, which I liked calling it. And it's mentioned by others as well. After collecting the hearts I needed, it was time for a one-on-one against Dracula. I've waited my whole life for this moment, and I was nervous because I heard he was very tough to beat. Okay, Mike, you can do this. You got this. Okay, you don't got this. Well, Dracula loves teleporting on me. I managed to miss hitting his head before he disappears. My favorite though is when I jump to avoid his fireballs and they go up at me, resulting in my death. To give you some clarity on what time I started playing that day, it was 8:05 p.m. and it ended at 2:11 a.m. It was a slow but steady grind to get here, and I couldn't beat Dracula. This boss just dominates me, especially with his teleportation on my character. My left thumb was getting sore from playing for many hours as well, especially the farming for hearts. I knew I was right there to complete this game. The only thing that was standing in my way was this teleporting BS nonsense, which got me over and over again. It was getting way past my bedtime, and I was getting grouchy, and then, wait a minute, I'm starting to win against Dracula. I just need one more hit. Booyah! I got him! Okay, now on to the second form. I just have to throw the holy water at his feet and hit him on the head. Oh no, he's moving. And he's launching his fireballs at me, and now I'm dead.
It's official. You suck.
I almost beat him, and I blew it. I tried playing a few more times before calling it quits. It was time for bed, and I needed rest. The following morning, I'm very tired at work. I keep contemplating whether or not I just want to skip doing the Castlevania video altogether, because I can't win over the Count. He's impossible.
That's impossible!
I'll never be able to beat him. Well, as you can see, sometimes you win or sometimes you lose. Like what you saw happen to me. I thought if I got older, I'd be smart enough to conquer Dracula. He is still a tough hombre. I remember talking to my friend Insk95, whom I had on my podcast, about whether or not I should just throw in the towel. He actually encouraged me to keep going. June 11, 2024 is the night that I will hopefully defeat Dracula. Count Dracula was one of the hardest bosses I've ever encountered. The word cheapskate isn't the only word I think of when I think of Dracula. This,
Stupid idiot!
will hopefully go down tonight. One of the things I need to be careful of is that I only drain one bar at a time. Well, a few hits from this guy and it's game over for you.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
But I was able to avoid getting hit with the exception of 2 hits from the count, which put me at 50% health. After hitting his head off for the last time, I began to really panic, because his second form killed me yesterday. This time, however, I decided to drain his second form slowly by just attacking him with holy water, since I managed to get enough hearts to do this with. Landing the last shot with the holy water and splash! Dracula shrieked, his pixelated form dissolving. Victory! I'd done it. The joy that surged through me was overwhelming. I conquered the unbeatable, fulfilled a childhood dream, and let's be honest, probably woke up the neighbors with my victory dance. Will I ever play Castlevania again? Probably not, since it was a pretty stressful experience dealing with the last part, especially how cheap Dracula is with taking me out. But I'm not going to say forever. I'm very happy that I finally beat the count and can now try and beat more punishing games on the NES. I know having my son watch me play was what I needed to beat the game. But here's the twist. It's not just about me. Back in the day, it was never just about the player. It was about the audience. The friends huddled around, cheering, gasping, and occasionally shouting unsolicited advice. They were our virtual cheerleaders, witnesses to our triumphs and failures. So remember this, sometimes it's not just about pixels and high scores. It's about resilience, nostalgia, and the sheer joy of achieving what once seemed impossible. Thanks for joining me on this epic quest. I bid you farewell, and remember, gaming is your road to adventure. Thank you for listening to my personal story and how I finished Castlevania. I want to thank you also for your support on this channel. Recently I just reached 500 subscribers, and I plan on doing a video on it with a story of my journey there, as well as thanking you. Thank you also to those few that got me to 500. I remember being stuck at 498 and I got 2 of you that got me to 500. Thank you so much.